Draymond Green was recently interviewed, and he was asked about his fellow teammate who is currently refusing to get vaccinated. Check out his response, and then I'll talk about it.
That would be like me telling him, like, yo, your wife is going into labor. How dare you leave this team and not go tend to your wife for what that could mean for this team? That's something that's personal to him. That's health related. That's something that's personal to his family. This is no different. This is we're dealing with something that to me feels like has turned into a political war. Um, when you're talking about a vaccination and non-vaccinated, I think it's become very political. And for someone who's not extremely into politics, uh, when you make something so political and people, not everyone is into politics, then you can also turn those people off. And I think there is something to be said for people's concern about something that's being pressed so hard. Like, why are you pressing this so hard? Like, so much, you're just pressing and pressing and pressing. I think you have to honor people's feelings and their own personal beliefs. And I think that's been lost when it comes to vaccinated and non-vaccinated. And it kind of sucks that that's been lost because you're essentially not giving anyone. You say we live in a land of the free. Well, you're not giving anyone freedom because you're making people do something essentially without necessarily making them. You're making them do something, and that goes against everything that America stands for or supposedly stands for. And so I don't think. No, I know I'm not in any position to go tell him what he should or should not be doing. And as a leader of this team, I'm not going to go to him and say, "Hey, man, we really need." No, the hell, you do what you feel you want to do. That has nothing. I'm not going to go and ask him, did he get a polio vaccine? So why would I go ask him if he got a COVID vaccine?
Okay, so this is a very interesting set of events that have been going on. So essentially, over the past couple of days, weeks, months, whatever, there have been a plethora of professional athletes, some with more notoriety than others, that have come out and said that they are anti-vax, that they don't want to get vaccinated for whatever the reason may be. The two particular athletes that come to my mind, though, in recent memory, is Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets and Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green's teammate of the Golden State Warriors. Now, they both have their different reasons for not wanting to get vaccinated. Kyrie Irving, I believe, has gone down the conspiratorial route, that the government is doing something and, it's targeting black people. I don't know what his reasons are. I don't want to put, imaginary words in his mouth, theoretically speaking, of course. But that's kind of the pipeline that he's gone down. And Andrew Wiggins is against the vaccine, he says, due to religious reasons. We know that, religions, some religions are anti-vaccine because they look at it as unpure and, undivine or whatever the concept is that they may use. And this has, stirred up quite the outcry on social media and in, news media and whatever, because, vaccination has become such a prevalent issue in today's day and age with COVID running rampant and still killing people as I speak. Now, let's get into Draymond Green's comments. So he says that this has turned into a political war. It has become very political. That is true. Anybody with an objective mind, anybody with common sense can see that that's what's happened with COVID and with this vaccine. It has become very political. It's a shit show right now. And it doesn't take an intelligent, a genius mind to figure that out. Okay? He also says, and this is what I like the most about his comments, when you make something so political for people that aren't into politics, you can turn some of these people off. And that's completely true. I think that, these athletes in particular, they're a great example. They live in a different world than normal people, and that goes for anybody with any sort of notoriety and wealth, right? They live in a different world. His concerns isn't the same of mine. He doesn't really worry about certain things that you, a regular individual, may care about so deeply. whether it be healthcare, wages, whatever. Okay, because his situation is different, right? But when he speaks on an issue that affects everyone, this one being the issue of vaccinations, it draws way more eyes towards him because he's an individual with, he's a public figure and he has a lot of notoriety and influence, right? So there's a lot of people watching and monitoring what he says. And when these specific individuals come out and speak on things that affect everyone, the general population, and they may get it wrong as they often do, and you berate them and you shame them, it does turn them off. And they may seek safe havens in avenues in which they otherwise shouldn't. The most recent example, in my opinion, is the one with Nicki Minaj, when she came out talking about how her the friend of her cousin got vaccinated, and as a result, his testicles became enlarged. And people dunked on her and shamed her and berated her. And, she went to seek agreement with people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and they made her somewhat of a martyr. I mean, that's what you can do to people. You can push them away when otherwise you should be trying to bring them in, because with their influence and cachet, they can be incredible, people to ally with for movements that actually matter, right? So point form there. And this is where I kind of diverge and I don't disagree. And I kind of wonder what he means by this. He says you have to wonder why something is being pressed so hard. Something that he's referring to as the vaccine. What do you mean by that? Like, seriously, what do you mean? I don't understand. Why is the vaccine being pressed so hard? Because COVID is a viral disease and people are dying. We're trying to prevent death. That's why it's being pressed so hard. Nobody's making you take the vaccine. That's this misinformation. And I think he may have insinuated that. Like people are being made to get it. Like you're not giving anyone freedom, I believe is what he said. Everyone has freedom. Nobody's showing up to your house with federal agents sticking a needle in your arm. To my knowledge, that is yet to happen. The only people that I'm aware of that absolutely have to get vaccinated are federal workers. If you're a worker and you don't work for the federal government and you work for a business that has over 100 employees, you have the option of getting weekly tested once a week. And I'm not even sure that all businesses are even enacting these rules that were outlined in the vaccine mandate that Joe Biden released relatively recently. So he's wrong on that point. Nobody's making you get vaccines. Nobody's taking away your freedom. And on the subject of federal workers, I actually don't agree with that. I think that they should be allowed to get tested once a week or daily like everybody else is, right? So that's actually untrue. Your freedom isn't being taken away. Nobody's making you get the vaccine. Now, to top this off, I have to say this. Can we stop? For the love of God, can we stop pretending like every time an athlete or someone with some sort of notoriety or influence has a banal, common sense, ordinary take such as the one that Draymond just provided, that they somehow have enlightened us, that they somehow, have provided this extraordinary statement that not even, the smartest man in the world himself could have come up with? Like, can we stop doing this? Can we genuinely stop doing this? Like, they're, heralding around Draymond, and I don't really care. I just think it's hilarious. I see people on Twitter saying this is the greatest COVID statement since COVID started. Can you please stop? Like, so many reasonable and well-educated and well-meaning and intelligent people have said really good things about COVID, very smart things that you should take heed to, common sense things since this whole thing has began. Let's not pretend like this guy has somehow come across with, the greatest point ever. Like, why are we doing that? But I do think that it speaks to something very important in society when Draymond Green looks like the smartest person in the room.